Hello, everybody, and welcome to the June 23rd episode of Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
And we got 2 episodes to bring you, 6 races altogether, a lot of long races, so let's get to it. First race we'll show you is from last Wednesday. The 5th race, we're looking at the 4 Exile Princess and the 6 Higher Incentive.
Yeah, there's an interest. I found this race interesting for a number of reasons. The first thing we're going to show you is Higher Incentive getting left. Now, this is the second time in a row that she's gotten left. She was off a claim for Joe Imperio from Gary Contessa. She's a horse that has some ability. The getting left part's starting to bother me. The other horse, this is the one that really interests me, and that's the 4 horse in this race, Exiled Princess. Exiled Princess was coming off of a very impressive win against Males in her prior start. A race where a very fast pace was set, a pace of 46-2, I think, to the half, 23 and a piece, 46-2. And in this race, we're very surprisingly, Serling, who finishes second, was the 9-5 favorite and got off to an easy dawdling lead of 24 and 47-3 on a very firm course. While this was going on, you really have to watch Exiled Princess, and the ride she's getting, of course, way in the back of the pack, is the other horse, Higher Incentive. But I don't understand what was happening in this race. Here's a horse that Jorge Chavez rode the prior time, aggressively ridden the lead in a very fast pace, and today, keep watching this horse, he's absolutely throttling her down. I understand when a game plan doesn't work, you go to a different game plan. They had a game plan that worked, and they went to a completely different game plan.
Yeah, no way on paper this horse shouldn't be sitting worse than second right now. Should be sitting where the 1A exclusive scheme is, and probably should be on the lead, to be honest with you. 24, 47, and 3. This is slow for a mile on the Widener.
And she continues to be dragged back at this point. It's not like at any point, it's like she wants to be part of the base. Exclusive scheme, if you look at the PPs of this horse, Exile Princess, an exclusive scheme, and you imagine that this horse is going to be as far back as she was, it's just unimaginable. Meanwhile, all this is going on, nobody can really close, and Higher Incentive is even further marred by that.
Yeah, Higher Incentive's got a few horses right in front of her right now, and just has to try to just plug along and do the best she can here. But Exile Princess, finally gets some room down inside, just doesn't have the run, and you just got to wonder, if tactics were a little bit different early on by Jorge Chavez, would this horse have been able to win the race? I think you can make the argument that the race would have been totally different, might have been able to.
She would get my award for one of the bravest victories of the Belmont meeting last time she ran. It was some impressive visual performance. And then to completely change tactics in her next start in a race on paper where Settling Seas was the favorite. Probably, I don't know why she was a favorite, but she was. And she looked like a speed. You would think that she's going to at least attend to her. Instead, she's being aggressively taken back. I don't understand the change in tactics. The next time Exiled Princess runs, she has to be part of the pace. Whether or not she's good enough to win, we'll find out. But she's a speed horse and needs to lead. What do you think about the other horse you're interested in, Higher Incentive?
Higher Incentive? I don't know. I mean, the right kind of pace, I guess, is what she needs. And, the problems at the break are a little troublesome, but she did have a little extra trouble down the backstretch there, having steady pretty sharply. The race certainly didn't collapse, I wouldn't say. So, I'd give her a long look next time out. If she's a fair price, maybe I'll come back with her.
7 furlongs in a race with a pace. Otherwise, I'm no longer interested in a horse that keeps getting left. The next race is also from that day. It's the 6th race from the 16th of June, and this is horse Macedonia, and this trouble everybody saw.
Yeah, Macedonia is going to break really slow at the start. There you see jumping up at the start. They're going to spot the field 5-6 lengths right from the get-go here. But, to her credit, or his credit, I should say, he's going to get right back up in the ball game, and, I think maybe gotten back in the ball game a little too quickly.
Well, that's the question. That's the debate of the race. The question was, if you were Kent DeSormo, should you perhaps, and everything is much easier in hindsight, should you have just settled the back of the pack, and there she is right there, instead of making this Secretary of the Preakness-like move around the turn and getting up to second, and ultimately finishing second as the best horse? I think the hindsight is wrong.
I don't know. I would have preferred to see him kind of inch up gradually around the turn maybe and move up slowly down the backstretch to get into the position where he will eventually be at the top of the stretch. I just think this is too much too soon for this horse after breaking slow.
Well, ultimately, of course, it is. But there's a problem with that kind of thinking. The problem is it's a result-oriented thought. What happens is the horse sitting last ends up winning this race. This is a first-time starter, by the way, from Christophe Clement, Antrim Shield, who runs third. The reason we're showing this horse is up close early behind the slow pace, ends up getting shuffled or dropping herself out of the race and re-rallies. I think it's a false. I think she re-rallied because the race fell apart. It's a funny dynamic because even though it's a very slow pace and the favorite is on the lead in this race, a Kieran McLaughlin horse, that horse ends up just collapsing anyway, and it collapses the whole race. So yes, in retrospect, it's easy to say Macedonia could have sat back there and as the race collapsed, won the race. The problem is going in, the whole world knew that almost Seeb was going to be the lone speed and setting a slow pace. That's why the horse was favored. So that's the horse they worried about more so than the horse who's back last year.
This is true, but also going a mile and a quarter, a horse with no turf experience. I mean, those are two big question marks on the favorite here, Almuda Seeb, and whether or not maybe Kent Desormo said, maybe this horse going a mile and a quarter untested on the turf. Maybe I want to be up in that close position when if that horse starts to drop back, I'll get first run, and they're going to have to come and catch me. Perhaps that was going through his mind. Perhaps it was the right thought at the time, but the way the race turned out, I just think he would have been better suited, kind of just gradually moving along.
Yeah. If the way the race turned out, of course you're right. It would have been better suited. The problem is he didn't know. He didn't have a crystal ball. I think Desormo did the right thing with this horse on a horse that was not his fault getting left. It turned out to be the wrong thing, but that's racing. We all try to make decisions beforehand, and most of the time they end up being the wrong ones. It's just I've gotten some emails about this, and I understand looking at retrospect, you're right. The problem is we didn't know that beforehand. An interesting race, and clearly Macedonia was best. He'll be about 4 to 5 next time he runs.
Be a short price. We'll take a look at one more race in this first segment here. We'll go to Thursday, June 17th. We're looking at race number 6 in here, the 5 Nay Problem and the 6 Lucida. They both have some trouble in this first turn. They'll both be hung out a little bit wide. We'll stop and highlight there to show you where they are. The 5 is Nay Problem, the 6 is Lucida. They're both going to get hung out a little wide around the first turn. Then there's going to be a problem with the horse Simply Karina, the 3 horse who gets out a little bit at the end of the turn there and further carries them a little wide. They're going to have to steady as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting race dynamic, and we love doing these mile and an eighth races where the field speeds it up out of the gate to the first turn and then slows it up dramatically. And Lucida and now Problem are horses that are both affected badly like this. They're also affected when the 3 horse in here, Simply Karina, runs third. She drifts out badly here, and you'll see both of these horses getting caught and pushed out farther.
Yeah, that's a big problem. I think Lucida probably took the worst of it, being farther behind and being more toward the outside as well, so we're going to lose some ground and lose position as well. Nay Problem kind of gets back up into the race a little bit, but still has to work a little bit to do that. What about the dynamics of this race? I think the race kind of fell apart toward the end late. Silk Route came from back, and Silk Route's actually last in the picture right now. Patient ride from jockey Kent Desormo here. I thought the race kind of set up for a horse to come from off the pace, and wasn't so sure that the horses we're looking at that had trouble. Were they really affected by the way the race was run?
I don't think they were, because I think the horses we pointed out, had some early trouble in the race, and that may have hurt them a little bit. But ultimately, Silk Route, who won this race, a Bill Mott second-time starter, she's been up in stake races. I'm not so sure Home Rule, finished second here, doesn't have the same kind of potential. They were the best horses in the race, and that's why they won the race. And it was a very patient ride to Desormo. Lucida's back here. Nay Problem's still here, because also Simply Karina, who finishes third, who caused those problems, she's on the pace, and she probably was the third best horse in this race. So I'm not sure that dynamics played a big factor here. I think the quality of the field and the trips of the horses we pointed out played the biggest factor.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And both horses end up wide around the second turn here, which is another minor thing. Like I said, I don't think it was anything that really necessarily cost them the race, but we'll see Silk Route come up through the inside here. Actually, split horses right now in the Juddmonte Silks and get up. I thought this was a very talented field, and I think you have to evaluate who they're running against next time out. If you're looking to bet Nay Problem and Lucida back again, you have to analyze who they're running against next time out, and it's probably going to be an easier spot for the most part.
Neither one of them is a superstar, but this was an extraordinarily difficult race that they got in. In Saratoga, there'll be some good races. They're not going to be as tough necessarily as the horses that beat them here, so they can run better. How good they are, I don't know. Nay Problem is a horse that had a huge excuse in her race before that, getting completely eliminated in the backstretch, so she may be a little bit buried at this point, and maybe in the right spot we can cash a bet with her. We'll see with Lucida. I'm still not sure how good she is and how far she wants to go. As much as I like to see her do well, because a friend of mine owns her. Anyway, we love hearing your thoughts. We can use all the help we can get. Trips and traps at NYRAinc.com. Thanks for watching.
And come on back for the second segment.